Chapter 12. A Promise. Unfolding. A month later, in early April, spring crept into Evergreen Hollow, leaving patches of earth bare between melting drifts. Clara led Nathan past the workshop, past the spot where her snow angel stood sentinel all winter. Their boots marked the softening ground until Nathan broke their quiet trek. She wore her gabardine coat with its simple buttons and small collar, while Nathan had exchanged his heavy mackinaw for a lighter wool jacket. "When the governor's wife first rejected my work, I built walls," he said. "I shut you out along with everything else." He stopped walking. "I'm sorry for the darkness I brought into our home." "You are forgiven," she said. "But look what grew from it." She touched his arm, making him see how sunlight caught the water dripping from maple branches. God had better plans than our pain. This year's winter seemed to have no end. The earth waking up reminds me that even the coldest seasons don't last forever. I've been holding on to my winter for far too long, Clara. Thank you for waiting for the thaw. She reached for his hand. Happily, as winter fades, spring always arrives. Evening embraced the Whitmore home as a woolen shawl, the fire in the hearth casting warmth throughout the parlor. Clara sat in Nathan's newly carved rocking chair he'd built for her, her hand pressed against the swell beneath her dress. At 4 months along, each day resembled walking a tightrope between expectation and memory. Dr. Campbell's latest visit had brought encouraging news, though she noticed how Nathan hesitated over the half-finished cradle in his workshop. Not the Henderson piece, a different one, now for their own child. He'd worked on it only in short bursts, as if fearful to tempt fate. The other older cradle stood in the attic. He'd wanted to begin anew and build another with hands that had learned forgiveness. The craft school plans were sprawled across his work table beside Edward's proposals. What had sounded pure in Boston's marble halls grew thornier in Evergreen Hollow's soil. Each detail sparked a debate. Proper class size for careful teaching, which traditions deserved protection, what parts of progress might strengthen rather than shatter their craft, and most pressing, how to balance Edward's money against their need for independence. "You're still reading them." Nathan paused in the parlor doorway, sawdust marking his path. She turned another page of his midnight confessions. "Each letter shows me your fresh heart. They are an opportunity to discover you all over again." "I'm right here. You discover me every day." She shook her head. "Your written words are different. You should rest." "I've rested all day," she replied. A sudden sway in her vision forced her to grip the armrest. The lines of the room rippled, the parlor's corners shifting as a scene in a dream. She exhaled deliberately, steadying herself as her hand instinctively went to her growing belly. "The school opens soon. There's too much to—" As she stood, dizziness caught her in mid-sentence. Nathan reached for her as her knees buckled. "Clara!" His voice came from far away as he helped her to the sofa. The room spun, dark spots dancing at the edges of her vision. This wasn't her usual morning battle with breakfast, or her body's sudden revolt against the coffee she'd loved all her married life. These days, even the scent of Nathan's workshop, pine shavings and linseed oil, could send her rushing for fresh air. Dr. Campbell had called these changes promising, but this felt sharper, wrong in a way that clutched at her chest. "I'll fetch Dr. Campbell," Nathan said, his hand hovering over his coat. "No," she grabbed his sleeve. Please just give me a moment." A sharp knock broke their private fears. Thomas entered, shaking snow from his hat. The first students arrive a week from Monday, and Edward's lawyers delivered new terms for the school's funding. He held out several papers. "Not now," Nathan began, though Clara cut him off. "What terms?" she asked, willing the room to steady itself. "He insists on his name being on the building. The Parker School of Traditional Craft. As if he hasn't spent years attempting to destroy what Father built." "The name should be the Whitmore School." Nathan grabbed a paper, his free hand tightening on Clara's shoulder. She felt his struggle, pride wrestling with practicality. Edward's money meant survival, but his terms threatened to hollow out their victory. Pain knifed through her middle, sharper than any dizziness. Her fingers dug into the sofa's fabric. "Clara?" Both brothers abandoned the papers, Edward's demands scattering to the floor. "I'm taking you to Dr. Campbell," Nathan said firmly. "Thomas can handle—" "Wait." She forced the word out between shallow breaths. A deep cramp seized her lower belly, achingly familiar. "Number not again. Please." Nathan's face drained of color. They'd lost the last baby at 12 weeks. She was a month further along, but Thomas was already at the door, keys jangling. "The Model T's faster than the buggy," he called over his shoulder. "The terms," Clara managed, trying to focus on anything except the growing pain. "What else does Edward want?" "Clara, that's not important, right?" "Tell me." She needed this, needed something to grasp besides fear. Thomas pulled more legal papers from his coat. "Edward wants final say on which traditional methods are taught. Says some techniques are too time-consuming to be useful." Another cramp seized her middle, stealing her breath. Nathan gathered her into his arms, his heart pounding against her cheek. "The school can wait," he whispered, moving toward the door. "Everything can wait." She glimpsed his workbench through the doorway, the half-finished cradle draped with a cloth, as if he'd known all along not to hope too much. "Come, hurry," Thomas shouted. His truck choked and stammered, struggling against the persistent chill. Patches of ice clung stubbornly to the ground, refusing to yield to the faint promise of a new season. April had worn her snow angel's edges, the wings spread wide as if offering protection. "Lord," she whispered, "not this time, please." They stopped briefly at Thomas's house, where he rushed inside to use his newly installed telephone, one of the first in the village, to ring the doctor ahead of their arrival. "I'll pray," Josephine called after them, her voice carrying across the yard. Every jolt on the rutted road sent fresh waves of pain through Clara, her grip tightening on Nathan's secure hand. They passed the church where Reverend Pembroke's light burned. He'd be deep in his evening devotions, perhaps already adding their unborn child to his prayers if Josephine had reached him. The Model T's headlamps finally caught the red brick of Dr. Campbell's building, where his shingle hung above Potter's Apothecary. Thomas barely waited for the engine to stop before leaping out to help Nathan lift her from the car. "I remember what you wrote," she said to Nathan. "In your letters, about seeing God's hand in every piece of wood, about faith shaping what we can't see." "The baby is stronger this time," he assured, though his voice wavered beneath its forced confidence. Dr. Campbell waited at the door, alerted by Thomas's telephone call. He steadied Clara's arm, guiding her over the icy steps and up the stairs. At the landing, she paused, looking back across the village. Somewhere in the darkness, her snow angel kept its vigil, like the angel Gabriel announcing impossible hope, standing guard, the tenuous yet unyielding promise of life and renewal. The doctor's office held its usual scents of carbolic soap, starched linens, and menthol. The examination room, with shelves lined with neatly labeled glass bottles, offered a reprieve from the chilly night. A pot-bellied stove in the corner radiated constant heat, its surface holding a steaming kettle. A sturdy oak desk bore the weight of his instruments, organized with the precision of someone who valued order. "Lie still, Mrs. Whitmore," he said, his manner gentle and professional. "Let me see what's troubling you." Nathan prowled the room restlessly, his hand tracking the edge of the glass-fronted cabinet stocked with bandages and vials. He paused near the window, his gaze fixed on the snow-covered street below. He could scarcely make out Thomas's shape in the darkness, the red ember of his cigarette rising and falling like a distress signal. The medicinal air, antiseptics and iodine mixed with traces of chloroform, turned Clara's stomach. It clung to her like a second skin, making each breath heavier than the last. "The baby's heartbeat is strong," Dr. Campbell announced as he stepped back. "Stronger than I'd expect, given our history," Clara finished. Another cramp gripped her, though its teeth seemed duller now. "We can save this child if you follow my instructions exactly," he said. "Complete bed rest for at least 4 weeks. No exceptions, then we'll reassess." "Thank you, God." Nathan's shoulders sagged with relief as he lifted his praise, then turned to her. "You hear the doctor, Clara? We're going to get through this, and you must take it easy." "The school opens before then," Clara said. "Nathan, I need to help." "Nathan needs you and this baby more than any school," Dr. Campbell stated. "I suspect your husband's students will gain a valuable lesson about priorities when they find out why their teacher's wife must rest." Through the window, Clara made out the church spire, its cross bright against the snowy sky. As she drew the fabric back over her middle, another twinge reminded her of her vulnerable state. Each of her breaths carried a warning, bringing her closer to fear. "Thomas will handle the school preparations," Nathan said, helping her rebutton her dress. His fingers trembled against the fabric. "Edward's terms can wait." The doctor's exam had been brief, only her upper body, checking for any signs of discomfort in her abdomen with a quick, gentle press of his fingertips. "Number Edward's terms can't wait." Clara gripped Nathan's arm. "If we allow him to dictate how craft is taught, what kind of world will our child inherit? One where factory whistles drown out workshop prayers, where speed counts more than spirit." Dr. Campbell's fountain pen hovered over the prescription pad. "Rest isn't surrender, Mrs. Whitmore. Sometimes those who step back see clearest." Thomas came into the doorway. His expression lightened at the sight of Clara upright. He glanced at Dr. Campbell, the question catching in his throat. "Is she—" "The baby is fighting." Nathan's thumb stroked the curve of her belly. His voice roughened, fingers lingering as if he could protect them both from touch alone. "Exactly like its mother." "Then we need to choose our battles wisely." Thomas drew out a creased paper from his coat. "I located Father's letter about teaching. He wrote that mastery goes deeper than technique. It's about God's presence in every piece of timber." "I remember those words," Nathan replied. "And?" "So, we propose our own terms," Thomas continued. "Edward's money builds the walls. Father's journals and wisdom immeasurable by ledgers determine what happens inside." Nathan rubbed a hand over his chin. "A compromise?" "A covenant." Thomas tapped the paper. "A covenant is more than an agreement, a sacred bond, one that carries weight, responsibility, and trust." Clara spoke up. "God's promises in Scripture, unbreakable." Nathan nodded. Father marked every commission. Made with prayer, built to last. We can teach both ways, efficiency and soul. Exactly, Thomas agreed. Allow the students to choose what speaks to their hearts. Beneath her ribs, Clara experienced a flutter, insistent as courage. Dr. Campbell noticed her hand move to her stomach. Enough business tonight, he said firmly. Nathan, get your wife home and make her comfortable. Thomas can handle Edward's lawyers. The baby truly is stronger? Nathan asked as he helped Clara to her feet. Dr. Campbell's eyes softened with understanding. Strong as oak, though even oak needs deep roots and patient tending. He pressed the prescription into Nathan's hand. Instructions for the month ahead. These terms aren't negotiable and may extend longer. As Thomas drove them home, Clara reflected on promises and possibilities. Much as any tender seedling, dreams needed shelter and room to unfold. Ice encrusted their front steps, but Nathan carried her inside with the same care he used handling chapel carvings. The cold still holds, he murmured, glancing toward their bedroom above. I'll set up the parlor for you. No need to risk those stairs. Clara caught his sleeve. Explain your thoughts about Thomas's idea. He settled her in her rocking chair, tucking a quilted coverlet over her legs. Father saw holiness in every piece he shaped. A dovetailed joint could preach as clear as any sermon. He knelt beside her. That's what we pass on. Not only the cutting of wood, but the reading of it. And Edward's money? Let him claim the building. The truth lives in what we create. His palm settled where their child stirred beneath. In what remains after the noise fades. A light tap on the door, and Thomas stepped in. His grin stretched wide, his gaze alight with unmistakable victory. I telephoned Edward's lawyers, and they consented. We can begin teaching as early as a week from Monday. Tears brimmed, and Clara dabbed at them with her cuff, too drained and happy to hold them back. How did you sway them? She asked. I didn't. Margaret uncovered our answer in Father's ledgers, Thomas replied. Not only his accounts, but also his notes about who ordered each piece and why it mattered to them. Nathan, that chair you made for Mrs. Kelly? Edward's grandmother owned one almost identical. He recognized the pattern when we met with the selectmen. Nathan straightened. The rose and vine work along the arms. Yes, different branches of the same tree, you might say. Thomas smiled. Seems even progress has roots it mustn't forget. We'll need help, Nathan said. These upcoming weeks while Clara rests. Already arranged. Andrew is drafting the legal papers, and Margaret is sorting Father's journals, and she knows how Edward's mind works. Thomas shifted, then reached into his coat pocket. There's something else. The governor's wife sent this directly to my house. He withdrew an envelope, its state seal unbroken. Inside lay a single photograph of a cradle, its carved angels unmistakable in the sepia-toned image. She discovered it in a shop in Wellesley, passed down through Boston families and then sold. He held Nathan's stare. She's asking you to restore it. Nathan's fingers creased the worn edges. This design, he murmured, the truth striking with undeniable certainty. This is Father's craftsmanship. I'd recognize it anywhere. His gaze glided to the kitchen table, where Mrs. Bradford's dining room drawings were waiting, sketches of wings and roses that echoed his father's hand. A piece of our heritage, finding its way home, Clara said softly. In addition, Thomas pulled out a further letter. Mrs. Bradford wishes another cradle, similar to the Henderson one, to be displayed at the school, so students can appreciate how artistry connects generations and links social boundaries. He grinned. Seems we've gained a powerful ally in preserving tradition. He crouched by the hearth, uncovering a faint glow in the ashes. He added kindling and stoked the embers until the flames revived. Then he turned to them. "Soon, Nathan and I will begin a school day, and Clara will rest. Josephine and the other women from church are going to help with the chores." He tipped his hat and strode out the door. Nathan drew a chair close to Clara's, his calloused hand joining with hers. "A month, Doctor," Campbell had advised. 4 weeks for their child to grow stronger, while young students embraced the heart of workmanship, while old wounds mended and fresh aspirations flourished. Outside, the snow angel's wings sparkled in the moonlight. The thaw had smoothed its edges, transforming rather than erasing its shape. "Clara?" Nathan asked. "Been keeping this since sunrise." Nathan reached into his pocket, cradling a cherry piece no bigger than his palm. There in miniature lay her snow angel, each detail captured as if the woods itself had dreamed it into being. Even the wings seemed poised for flight, waiting only for spring to lift them. "I started it weeks ago," he admitted, "working on it in odd moments, trying to capture what you saw when you made your angel. Things that I was too blind to understand." "And now?" she asked. "I see it differently. The angel was a map, a means of understanding how we leave traces of ourselves in something as tenuous as snow, how our presence matters, even when we think it doesn't." His hands shook almost imperceptibly. "I tried to preserve the physical imprint and the spirit behind it. You recognize beauty in a moment that I completely overlooked." "Thank you," she whispered. "It's beautiful." In a soft, almost hesitant movement, he leaned in and Clara met him halfway. Their lips touched, gentle and reverent, the sensitive preservation of a treasured love. The kiss breathed quiet strength, a pledge of resilience, a connection that shared passion, mutual respect, and a deep, unspoken respect. Time paused, suspended in the arc between vulnerability and courage. In their connection, they held the trembling view of life, of love enduring beyond fear, beyond the shadows that had nearly claimed them. When the kiss ended, Nathan drew back first, his eyes tracing Clara's features. A current of unspoken emotion passed between them. No words came. None were needed. Their breaths mingled, a silent testament to the love they had never lost. How far they'd come since that night in January. Nathan finding his path back to his gift, Thomas rediscovering the core of his art. She nestled the wooden angel snugly beside her. "To remind us that certain truths remain, even beyond winter," Nathan said. She turned to him, her heart swelling at the sight of the man she loved, his words a reflection of the wisdom and kindness that defined him. With unexpected intensity, Nathan caught her hand and pressed a reverent kiss to her palm, his lips lingering where her lifeline traced a fine arc, a touch that seemed to claim her, with a love both fierce and infinitely gentle. Her gaze drifted to the Bible, the edges of the pages worn from years of searching for answers. She recalled a verse she'd underlined long ago. "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go."